Your plants need a boost, but you don't know much about fertilizers. In this episode, we're going to talk about how you can use different types of fertilizers to provide the required nutrients to make your plants thrive and flourish in your garden. Hey guys, this is Daryl, Louisiana Simple Living. Thanks for joining me in my office. It's been raining cats and dogs all last night and through today, so my video I'm going to do inside in my office. Knowing all the nutrients that are required and knowing how to provide those nutrients for your plants is critical in the success of your garden. Alright, so you go into your garden store and you want to look at fertilizers, things to give your plants a boost. And on the wall, on the shelf, there's just a ton of different chemical, synthetic type of fertilizers, along with organic fertilizers. So we need to have a general idea or understanding of those fertilizers so you know which ones you want to use and apply in your garden. But look, all the fertilizers are really trying to do the same job. And that's to provide nutrients to the plants. Alright, the chemical fertilizers typically make those nutrients more quickly available to your plants. And so it's basically you're putting chemical fertilizers in specifically for the plant to do better. So where if you're also looking at the organic side, what I'm counting on is all the microbes in the soil. It's working on all those organics on the compost, and it's making those nutrients available to the plants as well. So some fertilizers can be absorbed faster, while some are more focused on the macronutrients versus the micronutrients. So you really want to think about the long-term solution for all the different nutrients, not just for your nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. Alright, so we're going to try to take some of that mystery out of the fertilizers. If you haven't as yet, please subscribe, ring the notification bell, and feel free to share the video. I'm sure there's somebody you know who could use this information for their garden as well. Alright, let's get started. Alright, first, what is fertilizer? In common terms, fertilizer and plant food are synonymous in that they're all intended to provide nutrients to your plants. Alright, the chart here shows you the plant nutrients. Fertilizers contain the essential nutrients required by plants, including nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. Not all fertilizers give all the nutrients. All the elements shown on this chart are important to plants throughout their life cycle at some point. The first three, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, are all available through either air or water. The next three macronutrients, nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus, must be available in the soil. The remaining macronutrients and all the micronutrients are available through the soil or must be available through the soil as well. You can get fertilizer in both liquid or dry form. You can also get it in both organic or chemical or synthetic forms. The pH of your soil does have an impact on the ability of the plants being able to take in the nutrients. So as this chart from the LSU Ag Center shows, soils with excessively high pH, which you're looking at 7 or higher, or low pH, which is 5.5 and below, are not very welcoming to all nutrients. In soils like these, the nutrients present in fertilizers are either too soluble or not soluble at all, and the plants can't absorb them, or they become toxic to the plants. So soil with too high or low pH levels can be amended with lime or elemental sulfur to lower rates to pH respectively, but that's for another video. So all fertilizers come with a set of 3 numbers, big bold numbers on the package, and that's basically the fertilizer grade. And it's a system that's set up for all fertilizers that you're gonna, that'll tell you basically the composition of the 3 primary macronutrients, which is nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. And these 3 bold numbers of the fertilization grade provides the consumers the amount of the 3 soil-based macronutrients available in the fertilizer. And that is nitrogen in the form of single molecule nitrogen, phosphorus in the form of phosphate, and potassium in the form of potash. Therefore, a bag of 10-10-10 fertilizer contains 10% nitrogen, 10% phosphate, and 10% potash. In this example, which is blood meal, it has 12% of nitrogen and 0% phosphate and potash. Fertilizer labels will also give a more detailed guaranteed analysis as well as the source of the various nutrients in a smaller table somewhere on the label. In this case, it's Palma's Organic Citrus Tone Plant Food, which I use for my citrus trees and fruit trees. It has the NPK of 5, 2, and 6. And as you can tell, it gives a lot of other information on the different nutrients that are within the fertilizer. All right, in the NPK fertilizer classification, The N stands for nitrogen, and it exists, as a single molecule of nitrogen. Nitrogen is an essential element in chlorophyll development, amino acids, and protein production. High nitrogen fertilizer spurs a lush foliage growth. Alright, the P in the NPK stands for phosphorus, and it exists as a phosphate. Phosphate is essential in plant energy and helps develop the DNA and supports the DNA of the plant itself. Fertilizers with high phosphate percentage are used to promote vigorous roots, stems, leaves, and the plant overall. Finally, the K in the NPK classification stands for potassium, and it's available as potash. Potash is important for plant nutrition and the formation of proteins. Most functions within the plant rely on potassium being available. And potassium does thicken the stems and leaves, making them much more robust of a plant. It also enables the plant to grow faster, withstand pests and disease, and just be an overall more robust plant. Next, I want to touch on something that's important to me, which is organic versus non-organic, or the chemical or synthetic type of fertilizers. Alright, organic fertilizers are those that are made from plant or animal type of byproducts that are naturally occurring. Organic fertilizer can be made from anything from seaweed, from fish byproduct. It can be from cottonseed, cow manure, chicken manure, mushroom compost, anything that's really organic in nature. Of course, you can buy those commercially, or you can make your own compost, or your own compost tea is another thing you can do once you have some compost. All these things they depend upon supplementing your soil and building your soil up, which in return the microbes and all those into the soil. As your organic matter degrades, the microbes work on it. It makes those nutrients available to the plants. Alright, advantages of organic fertilizers include, so they provide nutrients, as I just mentioned, as they break down. They sit in your soil. The microbes work on that organic matter and ends up converting it into nutrients that are available for your plants. And they also improve the structure of your soil, making it friable, as well as retaining water for your plants when they need them. Improves the diversity and population of your microbia, which are in your soil, which is what you need to convert your organic matter into nutrients for your plants. Now, with organic fertilizers, they're basically more of a slow release as compared to a chemical type of fertilizer. Your chemical fertilizers are going to be in a form that are readily available for your plants to absorb. But again, you're trying to provide nutrients to the plant rather than work on your soil chemistry, which long term is a better thing in my mind. And it reduces the toxic buildup of chemicals and salts that tends to happen from a pure chemical type of fertilizer. And that chemical type of fertilizer works well, works quick, but it does have some toxic buildup over time in your soil, and that's something that I don't want to have. So I think that's a benefit for organic type of fertilizer. So organic fertilizers are sustainable, renewable, and just better supports the environment as a whole. Now, there are some disadvantages of organic fertilizers. Of course, organic fertilizers require on nature and the microbes, the chemistry of your soil, to break down as organic matter, but it's kind of going to play by its rules and Mother Nature's rules. It may not react as fast as you want. Cooler weather, the breakdown may be slower than, of course, during your warmer summer time frame. You have a little bit less control, in other words, of how quick the nutrients are made available for your plants. It's kind of up to Mother Nature. And of course, organic fertilizers tend to be more expensive. And the inorganic chemical fertilizers are those fertilizers that are kind of synthetically or just chemically made. They don't come from a, quote, natural organic source. And of course, these chemical fertilizers are typically made from ammonia. I mean, it's a pretty standard process. In Louisiana, for example, there's a number of plants here who make ammonia. And this process where they make ammonia and make chemical fertilizer is pretty inexpensive compared to an organic side of doing it. Unfortunately, environmental scientists have now identified nitrogen as one of the key elements that is affecting global environmental concerns. So the advantages, and there are some advantages of using the inorganic chemical type of fertilizers. Number one is it presents the nutrients in a state that is readily available to be used by the plants. So basically the nutrients are for the most part available immediately. So when you provide a chemical type of fertilizer, you can see your results within days, rather than if you go with the organic type of solution. Sometimes it will take a longer process for the microbes to break down the organic matter and that kind of thing. And because they're produced in a commercial type of or industrial type of setting, labeling is going to be very specific about the makeup of the the NPK, the makeup of the different micronutrients and any that may be there, as well as the source of how they made that particular chemical fertilizer. And again, I mentioned earlier, it is inexpensive. That's a clear advantage of a chemical fertilizer. Now, disadvantages, there are some disadvantages as well. So let's talk about those. Chemical fertilizers are generally made from non-renewable sources, and that includes the energy, at least, requirements of fossil fuels. And they do provide very fast nutrients for plants, but it does nothing really to support the soil. Again, difference between organic and non-organic approaches. Organic, we want to treat the soil, make the soil chemistry excellent, which allows the microbes to convert the organic matter into nutrients, whereas your chemical fertilizers are basically trying to get nutrients directly to the plant, period. And many of your chemical fertilizers, they don't provide all of those trace minerals, all of those micronutrients. So they do a really good job in the NPK, those elements. But then when you get down into some of the micronutrients, a lot of times it's just not there. So you're applying some fertilizer to provide some good nutrients, but you're also missing out on a number of the micronutrients that can make the difference between a great harvest or not. And because those nutrients are readily available, it increases the chance of over-fertilizing your plants, which if you do that, it could really have a chance of harming and even killing your plants. So if you over-fertilize your plant, there's a risk you're going to damage your plant. Chemical fertilizers tend to leach away from the plant, especially if it's like granules. So you put your granules around down by the plant. Wind, rain, different elements may cause that fertilizer to kind of leach away from where you're trying to apply it. It may be a runoff area. So you may be putting some fertilizer, nitrogen, those kind of things into an area that is not intended for your garden. And that just kind of leads to environmental issues through the long term. The long-term use of commercial chemical type fertilizers really affects the pH, or can affect the pH of your soil, which is really critical towards the health of your plants. So it's just something to be on the lookout for there as well. Please note, you don't need a different type of fertilizer. You just need a couple of fertilizers that you're going to use throughout the year, whether it be vegetables, flowers, and so forth. I mentioned earlier, you go into a garden center, you look up on the shelf, and man, there's just 100,000, it seems like, different types of fertilizers, chemical type fertilizers, organic fertilizers. It's just a wide range. So I'm talking about now, what are the ones that I use for the most part here in my backyard, organic raised bed garden, and just kind of give you some ideas from what I do. Remember that we talked about earlier, all plants require those same nutrients at some point throughout their life cycle. It may be at different ratios of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, whatever it may be. It may be different levels, and it depends upon at what part in the life cycle. Are they a seedling? Are they fruiting now? Whatever the case may be. But basically you're trying to provide those nutrients to those plants at the right time in the right amount. And remember, don't overcomplicate when you got to fertilize your or give a boost to your plants. This is not going to your pet store and like getting a different kind of food for dogs, cats, a guinea pig, and a goldfish. So those are 4 different kinds of food with totally different, makeups and composition. We're still talking about with plants, you're going to provide those same nutrients just at different levels at different times. So let's talk about some of those fertilizers that I use in my backyard organic raised bed garden. Alright, for vegetables I typically use a pretty balanced fertilizer. I use GS Plant Foods organic liquid fertilizer. It's a 2, 3, and 1 on the NPK range. I also have used Neptune's Harvest organic fish and seaweed liquid fertilizer. I've used that as well and it works fine. It's 2, 3, and 1 as well in the NPK. Typically when I want to give a little boost to the old flowers, I'll typically use a little blood meal, and that's a 12-0-0. So you're really throwing a bunch of nitrogen at the plant. It really makes the foliage really grow, jump out, helps with the flowers, the colors of the flowers. So that's also a good little tip. Also use Espalma's organic citrus tone fertilizer for my citrus and fruit, fruit trees. And that's NPK. It's 5, 2, and 6. And look, I'll put links down below for some of these products if you just want to look at it. I'll put a link to it. All right, what I want to talk about here real quick is the application of fertilizer. Not getting into the details about any specific application, but the most important point is, look, you got to make sure you understand what the ratios have to be. So if you're using GS Plant Foods, fish and kelp concentrate, organic fertilizer, check out the labeling and mix everything to the ratio that it needs to be per the manufacturer. When it comes to fertilizing, more does not necessarily mean better. Again, too much fertilizer, too strong of a fertilizer may lead to damage to your plants, or even lead to them destroying them or killing them. So you just want to make sure you look on the labeling for that particular product, for that particular fertilizer, and apply it the way that it recommends on the labeling. All right, hey guys, thanks for coming back to Louisiana Simple Living today. There's the macro and micro nutrients that your plants need to have to be robust and healthy plants. And so what we talked about today was, the different types of fertilizer, whether it be organic, which is kind of more of a long-term treat your soil rather than just trying to take care of your plant at this one time. We talked about different ways of how you can apply fertilizer and understand what the different parameters are around the NPK and kind of what that has an effect on when you do apply fertilizer to your plants. And again, there's a wide variety, whether organic or non-organic, and chemical types of fertilizers. And you just got to make a choice of which ones you want to use. I prefer to use organic, but I mean, that's your choice, right? And the reality is all of our plants need some level of all of those nutrients we talked about. Some may be in different ratios, and it may depend upon what part of the life cycle they're in. Are they just a seedling? Are they full grown? Are they actually fruiting at this time? All those things got to come into effect as to how you should apply and what fertilizer you should apply to those plants. Please put a comment down below if you got any questions, or if you have any recommendations on fertilizing out in your garden or out in my garden. I'm always open to hear suggestions and recommendations. If you haven't subscribed as yet, please subscribe, ring that notification bell, like the video, and again, share the video. I'm sure there's other people out there who could get some value out of checking out this info on fertilizers and understanding fertilizers for use in your garden. Just as a reminder, make memories now rather than later. And as always, I'll see you on the next video.